This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Friday, July the 18th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams. He's producing the Come On With An edition of the show. So if you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So here we are in sweltering summer heat. So where would I start this morning? Hockey. Got some emails from some families who I guess had their daughters in a hockey camp out in CBS that was conducted by PWHL member Maggie Connors and newly drafted Abby Newhook. Apparently terrific experience. Two lovely ladies and terrific hockey players. So I'm glad they enjoyed their time with Abby and Maggie. I saw an interesting stat yesterday that I just ran by Dave. So we remember back in 2020 in the NHL entry draft, the 18th overall pick was Dawson Mercer. Saw a list yesterday. He has the 5th most points of anyone drafted in that class behind Tim Stützle, who's an outstanding hockey player playing for Ottawa, who has 326 points. Lucas Raymond, 254th, and Seth Jarvis, the 1st overall pick. Alexis Lafreniere is 4th on that list, and then Dawson Mercer. So, obviously, playing as well as most people in the 2020 draft class. Fantastic. All right, British Open is on the go. I'll never forget this tournament. Back in 1999, I remember watching, we were still living in Alberta at the time. It was at Carnoustie in Scotland, notoriously one of the most difficult golf courses in the world. Paul Lowry, Scotsman himself, he was 10 shots back entering the final round. He went on to win a 4-hole aggregate playoff with Jean Van de Velde and Justin Leonard. So it comes from 10 shots back to win. But the big story out of that, not only is Scott winning in Scotland, but Jean Van de Velde on the 18th tee at Carnoustie with a 3-shot lead, loses his mind, manages to scramble for a triple bogey to get into the playoff, but Lowry, the Scot, wins the Open on home soil. All right. This is a fascinating story. So, you know me, big fan of swimming, so I'm going to be tuned in to watch some of the World Aquatics Championships, and, of course, a lot of the focus on 18-year-old superstar Canadian Summer McIntosh. Get a load of this story. There's a young swimmer from China, Yu Zidi, going to be racing at the World Swimming Championships later this month in Singapore, qualified to participate in 3 events. She's 12 years old. You'd be in 6th or 7th grade, depending on where you live in this world. So you qualified for the 200 and 400 meter individual medleys and the 200 meter butterfly. She could medal in all 3. She had a time in the 200 individual medley in the Chinese Championships. Fastest swim ever by a 12-year-old, male or female. Her time in the 200-meter butterfly at the same meet would have placed 4th in the Paris Olympics. It was the 5th fastest time in the world and would have been good enough for last year's gold at the World Championships. All right. In the 400-meter individual medley, the 5th fastest time of the year, it would have been good for 4th place at the last Olympics. The 400-meter individual medley is dominated by Summer McIntosh. By comparison, at the age of 12, Yu is swimming roughly 15 seconds faster in the 400 IM than McIntosh did at 12. 15 seconds is an eternity in a pool at the length of 400 meters. Imagine, a 12-year-old might find the podium at the World Aquatic Championships. Amazing stuff. Anyways, keep going. So I've had some concerns voiced via email about the no-chair policy at the upcoming Churchill Park Music Festival. Great lineup. They reversed the decision. So you can indeed bring a chair in designated areas, but they're saying if you're going to want to bring a chair, you should show up early to ensure that there's space available and to remind people to take their chairs when they leave. This is probably a very good decision by the organizers at Churchill Park. We've probably had a dozen emails from folks that saying, I'm not so sure I can go if I can't have a place to sit for those extended hours of enjoying some pretty great music in the park. So that's been reversed. So apparently last Friday evening around Whitburn, there was 3 separate moose vehicle collisions. And in one of them, an 18-year-old was killed, died in hospital after the collision. It comes at the same time where yesterday we mentioned that SOPAC is announcing that they've seen a commitment from the provincial government, more money for moose fencing, more money for brush cutting. Both very good ideas. The thought in some corners is that every year into the foreseeable future, the government should pick away at fencing every single year, not just some designated so-called hotspots. I don't know what a price tag might look like, but there are absolutely hotspots where we hear these types of stories frequently, far too frequently. So condolences to the family right off the bat. I mean, life has now been devastated by the loss of a teenage son. But what do we do about those moose vehicle collisions? And some of it is about, the time of day where we're driving, the speed with which we're driving, how attentive we are. But sometimes, based on just the fact that a skittish moose can come up over the bank and be in your windshield before you know it. But it's heartbreaking to hear those stories. But what do we do about fencing and brush cutting? I'll leave it up to you. And an arrest made here in the city of St. John's. A 24-year-old has been busted for the graffiti that he was spraying in a laneway near Cathedral Street. I bring it up because it's not the most heinous crime in the world, but it's not that long ago the provincial government told us that insofar as outstanding fines, whether it be for contraband tobacco or traffic violations, there's millions and millions and millions of dollars of unpaid fines. And they were talking about creating a community service mandate. If you can't or you won't pay your fine, you're going to have to do some community service, which of course would include cleaning the graffiti. And it would include, annual cleanups of garbage. There's lots of things people can do to help the community. So it sounds like a good idea to me. I know it comes with supervision. I know it comes with some liabilities. But I think it's probably still a good idea to try to recoup some of that money through effort insofar as community service goes. What do you think? Let's talk about it. All right, bigger stories. So we found out yesterday that North Atlantic was successful in dealing with the provincial government. They've been awarded the lease for Bull Arm. It's a non-binding memorandum of understanding at this time. So we know Bull Arm is a terrific fabrication facility, has lots of opportunities available, harken back to Hibernia, the work done with Hebron, and plenty of other projects throughout the course of its existence. All right. So they talk about it being a green energy hub. Fair enough, but we've all seen a pretty significant stall in these green hydrogen projects, onshore windmills, hydrogen, ammonia for export, no domestic use, and maybe the interaction with the provincial grid, all of those types of things. So hopefully North Atlantic is successful. We need them to be. They do talk about work that can be done in the oil and gas industry, of course, with Beta Nord in the offing, potentially to be greenlit at some time in the future. They make reference to natural gas finds that are off our shores, even though without a royalty regime, I can't see any company acting on it. Because why? Because of the uncertainty, and that industry thrives on certainty. Then they mentioned defense contracts. The CEO, I think, Ted Lohman, I believe that's who was on with Russell Bowers this morning, talking about the potential contracts that can be won regarding maintenance and repairs to the Victoria-class submarines. But that's over a decade down the road. So there's lots that needs to be done out there. The provincial government, now whether or not the Green Energy Hub is going to manifest itself into any significant amount of work, I don't know. Nobody knows at this point. But the key for the government, so says the minister responsible, is with a local company, and I know DF Barnes put their best foot forward, and I'm sure they're quite disappointed, for a local company to keep the local workforce local. That's the primary benefit to the province here. The details of the financial arrangements, I don't really know what they are, but if there can be an aggressive company like North Atlantic, who has been exactly that in the recent past, they've got a bit of an international footprint these days, and located here in this province, it's a success story. So let's see if they can create some buzz, momentum, and jobs. Because remember, we were told by Trades NL that some 75% of their 14,000 members are currently out of work. So good luck to North Atlantic, and I hope they are uber successful at a Bull Arm. If you want to talk about that, it's a big one, and we can take it on. And mention defense spending. Every now and then you see a little news story about possibility for defense spending and activity in Labrador particularly. When it comes to things like Arctic sovereignty, and we know that the shipping lanes are now being more and more ice-free, there will be different countries that will try to put their greasy hands on the Arctic of Canada. So we know that a number of years ago there was huge NORAD announcement spending, including 5-wing Goose Bay. But for folks in Labrador, whether it be Indigenous leaders or otherwise, let's talk more and more about what the opportunities might look like. Why? Because I think with a better understanding amongst the electorate can bring the political pressure to bear to ensure that everything that we can bring to this province, whether it be defense spending or critical minerals, supply chain or otherwise, we've got to get it out on the radar. And so let's do exactly that. All right. Another warning from the RNC about a dangerous drug on the street. This time it's something called phenazolam. It's been sold or presented as Xanax, but it's actually a benzo. it can drop you dead where you stand. On top of that, in a conversation we had yesterday, look, regardless of what you think about people who have fallen prey to serious drug addictions and the death spiral that it is, there really does, we can talk harm reduction, but the point that the caller made, it was Tina, is that we really, really have to expand the opportunities for people who want help to get it, and to get it right away. In detox services, and then to trim the timeline between leaving detox to get into rehab. Even if you think that there are a blight on society, the fact of the matter is anyone can fall prey to an addiction very quickly and very easily. Even if you think they belong in the shadows, the possibility for them to interact with the criminal justice system is on your tax-paying dime. The possibility to interact with the healthcare system is on your tax-paying dime. So the better we do there, we are collectively all better off. So a good starting point, and I think Tina's right, is detox and rehab has to be expanded dramatically. We do have a problem here. And if we have repeatedly stories about people who want help but can't get it, then we're not just letting them fall through the cracks. We're kind of betraying a lot of our taxpayer dollars. We're kind of, turning a blind eye and a deaf ear to a societal ill that needs to be addressed, and honestly and openly, through a variety of things. And it doesn't have to be one or the other, harm reduction or detox rehab. It has to be all, because there's not a simple fix to a complicated issue. Anyway, let's talk about it. All right. So Jerry Byrne, after 33 years in politics, both federally and provincially, is not going to seek re-election whenever the election will be. He makes comment that there might be a Jerry Byrne on the ballot sometime in the future, but it won't be him. His son Jerry is at law school, and who knows what the future holds for young Jerry Byrne Jr. Okay, so that's a pretty long list now of high-profile Liberals who are not going to seek re-election. They'll all offer their own reasons, but for the electorate, and human nature is pretty understandable on this front. The questions that I'm fielding are, why now? What's going on? What's behind all of this? They may have individually their own reasons or rationale for not running, but when so many high-profile incumbents are walking away, people are obviously going to ask these questions. I don't know what the answer is, but here's the most popular sentiments coming to me via email. Whether it be something to do with the new Premier, John Hogan, I don't know. Some of them supported Hogan in the leadership race, so I don't know if that's it. But the most popular is whether or not they have quiet concerns about the Upper Churchill Memorandum of Understanding. I'll use round number. If I've got 100 emails about this exact topic this week, 75 of them say exactly that there must be something to see regarding the Upper Churchill. Most of them make the similar point in this. The last time we had a major announcement on natural resources like this was the Lower Churchill at Muskrat Falls. And of course, then Premier Danny Williams, very shortly after the announcement, he decided that his political days were done. It's eerily similar to now. It wasn't too long, Andrew Fury, as the Premier made this announcement with Premier Legault at the Rums, where he decided his political future, or his political days were numbered for now. And so when followed by all of these other cabinet ministers, I think people understandably have that thought going through their head and willing to say it to me in an email, and are very likely wanting and willing to talk about it live on the program, which of course they're more than welcome to. Next to it, man. Back in 2024, there was a compensation review committee that recommended that MHAs who had not seen a pay raise since 2009, and that's a long time to go without, but the recommendation was for an automatic $25,000 raise, bringing an MHA salary to around $120,000. At least at that time, we had the information up front. People had an opportunity to weigh in. There were some conversations and debate amongst politicians themselves. So, all right, that's one thing. But now we find out that in quiet circumstances, in secret, behind closed doors, the cabinet ministers have taken it upon themselves to suggest that they deserve a new, what they call, transitional allowance policy. It's a severance. When so many people are struggling, and we just talked yesterday about the gap between the rich and the poor, the have and the have-nots, the historical gap between the muckety-mucks and the folks who are being left behind. This is just a bad idea. You know, the timing is terrible, number one. And secondly, you might feel good for the outgoing ministers and ministers into the future, but you don't think that this is going to be questions asked at the door when you're knocking looking for a vote? Now, a lot of the cabinet ministers aren't running again, so they're in no jeopardy to have to field these questions at the door, but this is highly suspect. Number one, if it's even going to be floated, float it. I mean, even in the world of the best political strategy is to see where the electorate comes down. Maybe, just maybe, I'm not outraged, but I'm not pleased, to say the least. So this is on top of the current existing severance package in the first place. Here it is. The new policy provided 1 month's salary for each year of service in cabinet on a prorated basis, minimum of 3 months and a maximum of 12 months. So, for ministers, minimum payout, $12,000, up to a full salary of $48,664, which is, of course, is the amount of money a minister makes on top of their MHA base salary. Okay. I don't know what anyone's going to think or say about this. And look, I have long said that I don't begrudge a reasonable rate of pay and compensation for politicians. I don't. And I'm not going to, use the old adages about, the need to attract the best and the brightest and all that kind of stuff. It is a difficult job for the most part, a thankless job for sure, and I don't mind them getting paid. Of course not. But a one fell swoop $25,000 raise is a lot. It's too much. Incremental raises, understood. But this additional severance, how can this even be justified? I get it. It's a tough job. I get it. You're in the crosshairs. I get it. You bear a lot of responsibility. But you also ran looking for that luxury in this life. So, again, I'm not going to beat this one to death, but it must be nice to be able to vote on your own pay, your own severance. Like I said to Russell Bowers this morning on his show, I wish I had that authority, because I'd be leaving here this afternoon with a big bump. Anyway, you want to talk about it? We can do it. All right, on this front, every time I bring this up, I'm told I'm cracked. The United Kingdom is now effective, well, it was announced yesterday, that they're lowering the voting age from 18 to 16. This conversation has happened in this country repeatedly over the years. There's actually a court case challenging the constitutionality of not allowing 16-year-olds to vote. So the UK is doing it. Advocates in this country have been kicking it around for a long time, but there doesn't seem to be the political will. What's the automatic pushback? Well, at 16, you don't know what you're talking about. In some cases, that's probably true. But add this to the conversation. There are some 16-year-olds out there today who aren't listening to the program. Why? Because they're working and they're paying taxes. And decisions made by politicians today absolutely impact 16, 17-year-olds tomorrow and today, I suppose. So it's a fascinating discussion to have. But I think if we simply dismiss it by saying they don't know what they're talking about, with all due respect to people of various ages, throughout the gamut of your voting eligibility from 18 currently, from 18 up, is there's plenty of people who have the privilege and the right to vote who also don't know what they're talking about. So I think it's a worthwhile conversation to be had. And I don't know if there's an argument against, if I'm working for a living and I'm paying taxes, how I don't get the right to vote is suspect, isn't it? I'll get in trouble with that one, but I suppose I do that to myself on purpose. All right, this is another interesting one. Let's go to Quebec. If you hear from a restaurateur, there's lots of issues with trying to hire capable, reliable people, the amount of training that has to be undertaken so that you have a good, efficient, effective food service inside your organization, your restaurant. In Quebec, restaurateurs will also say one of their biggest bugaboos is when people make a reservation but they don't show up. In Quebec, restaurateurs are now going to be able to find the no-shows. So it's a new charge. They're going to apply for each person who is a no-show, $10 a head. Apparently, average loss of revenue in Quebec restaurants is somewhere around $49,000 per year because of no-shows. So there's a bunch of rules they have to follow, though. They have to remind customers of the upcoming reservation, give them an easy way to cancel. It can only be applied to groups of 2 or more, and if none of the members of the party show up. So if I have a reservation for 3 and I'm the only one who shows up, we don't get the fine. But if nobody shows, $10 a head. Why not? I mean, as long as you're given lots of heads up about your upcoming reservation, because sometimes you might make one for a couple of Friday nights from now and kind of forget about it because the life is busy, right? So anyway, very last one. I've been asked many times this week why I'm not talking about Jeffrey Epstein and the Epstein flight logs and the Epstein client list and all the rest of it. I don't know if people want to talk about it around here. We're happy to take it on. Basically, I don't have the brain space for the stupidity and the hypocrisy and the weak excuses coming from a party and a person who said they would release all of these names. And now, of course, not only you're not going to release them, but they say it's made up by the Democrats or some other foolish nonsense. It's hard to keep up with. I do have a couple of people that have been picking at me about a variety of things over the course of the last decade or so. And now they've been given their marching orders. They say, you better not be talking about Epstein because it's time to move on. What? For starters, I don't really talk about it. And, you know, if one of the quick insults coming from some members of that political movement is to call people pedophiles and the R word, I can't believe that's all of a sudden acceptable these days. But anyway, if you're accusing others of that and yet are willing to protect what is exactly that, pedophiles, then it's a fascinating time to be alive. And in some circumstances, it's the dumbest time to be alive. But that's why I don't talk about it, because it's an absolute farce. But if you want to bring it up, we can do it. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show to wrap up the week. That means it can only happen if you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Wayne. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Thanks for taking my call.
Happy to do it.
I was looking at the news this morning, and Newfoundland Labrador Cabinet quietly approves new cash benefit for departing ministers.
Yep.
Is there anything else they can do? I mean, since they've got in, they ran their campaign of being transparent. The only thing they're transparent about is not being transparent. And that's the only thing I can see that they've done since they've got in that really was what they said. They weren't being transparent at all. They've done that much. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that this one in particular, you know, we hear all these stories of economic woe. We have the stories about the gap between the haves and the have-nots all the time. You know, it's one thing back in 2024 when there was public discussion about a recommendation of a $25,000 raise. But this one here, especially when it is done in April, and here we are in July with, 7 or 8 cabinet ministers, whether or not this plays an active role, the fact of the matter is people are struggling. And so this is dreadful.
And it is dreadful, Paddy. I mean, people are going to the grocery stores now and they haven't got enough money to buy groceries. And our government is doing everything they can to draw every cent out of the coffers so there won't be any money for anybody to have. It's ridiculous. I think they should be ashamed of themselves.
I don't think they are, but it is.
I don't think so either.
I'm not going to hesitate to say that there's a lot of shameful associated with this particular move. It just is. There was already a severance package. It was back in the 90s, unions and governments alike were talking about abolishing severances. Right? I mean, yes. And there's something to be said for that too. Look, I get the job is difficult. I get the job is busy. I get the job is thankless and all of that kind of stuff. I don't mind them getting paid an appropriate amount of money. But a quiet cabinet decision to simply benefit members of the room and nobody else is just not good enough.
And I mean, if CBC didn't let this go, when were they going to announce it? Or were they going to announce it? Or were we going to find out if the change of government that they had done it?
Well,
I mean, this is not very transparent for sure.
Nope. No, it absolutely isn't. And it's only because someone at the CBC caught wind of it and went to the Executive Council, who's the entity in charge of things like this. That's how anyone found out. So good on whoever, maybe it was Rob Antle or whoever at the CBC. Good for them for finding this out, because that's where I got it. I read it in the media. Your question as to whether or not they were going to announce it seems unlikely, given the decision is as old as April.
Exactly. I mean, and I mean, it didn't go through cabinet. It wasn't. They just did it in a back room somewhere. It's like they're running the country, the province here out of a shade. It's ridiculous. They should be held accountable for everything they're doing, and anything that's done like that, the opposition should know about it. They should get the debate about it. Everybody should know. Also, the general public should know. They shouldn't be allowed to be doing stuff like that. That's really just doing stuff under the table. And I think there's enough stuff being done under the table.
Probably. You know, if there's something like the Compensation Review Committee, There's a reason why that exists, because there should be an so-called independent body to bring forward recommendations publicly so that we all know what's going on. Because then we have opportunities, just like we did with the proposed $25,000 raise. When that story was in the news, because it was actually publicly disclosed, every single politician that came onto the show, on top of the issue they wanted to talk about, I had to, and I wanted to ask them about the proposed wage increase. I won't get a chance this time because it's behind us.
It's right. It's long gone. I mean, none of that makes sense to me. But I mean, I don't think. I think the Liberal Party is frightened to death now because they're resigning in right, left, and centre. And I mean, why they're doing that, I don't know. I mean, they were. I think when they brought out the MOU, they were going to call an election then, and then I guess the healthcare scandal blew up in their face. And I mean, you know where that's to. I mean, that was another big pile of waste of money. The Premier and the Health Minister at the times when they were in, they were travelling all over the country and all over the world trying to recruit people, and they're not even recruiting the people that's coming out of our nursing schools.
Yeah, well, at the exact same time, they're talking about, the announced plan to reduce our reliance on travel agency nurses, in part thanks to the graduating class of 2026. So I think the way we talk about things in the open, I think things have changed a little bit on that front with recruiting, actively staying in touch with people sitting in a nursing school classroom or every other healthcare discipline, because it feels like we need them across the board, regardless of the discipline.
Exactly. I mean, all the travel that they did. I mean, I don't know what became of it. They said that they had picked up extra people for the healthcare system. We never really got any right numbers. I suppose that was something they didn't want to be transparent about either. But I mean, that's the thing about all this. I mean, if they're not going to let the general public know what's going on truthfully, then, I mean, they're in the wrong position, because the people wants to know what's happening in their province. People wants to know how they stand when they go to the grocery store, and what's happening in taxes and stuff like that. It's not happening. They're just hiding everything and letting it be a surprise. And the Globe and Mail and CBC News, somebody got to bring it out so they'll disclose it. It's ridiculous.
Self-inflicted wound. When will they ever learn? I don't know. Wayne, I appreciate you making time. Anything else you'd like to say this morning?
No, that's fine for this morning, Paddy. Thank you. I could go on for the whole. I'll be taking a whole show, but anyway, I had my say this morning. Thank you very much.
I tell you what, if you want to talk till 12 o'clock, I got lots of stuff to be at today.
Listen, the Liberals won't want me to be talking, because I got a list of things that I'm so disappointed in. It's unbelievable. All the things they've done since they got in, the Rothschilds. I mean, they spent $5 million going and getting nothing. Never disclosed none of it. So, I mean, transparency, yeah, okay, that's another transparent thing they didn't do. So, I mean, why did they do anything like that when they're shooting themselves in the foot? Because people, Newfoundlanders are not stupid. They're going to realize what's happening, and they're not going to be in there the next time.
I didn't mean you could talk till 12.
Okay. Anyway, thank you, Paddy, very much.
Thanks, Wayne. All the best.
All right,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Rothschild one, I can't even imagine how many times I've brought that one up. And again, government does have any money. They don't. It's our money. And if me and you chipped in on a $5 million report coming from Rothschild & Co., I don't know how anyone has the audacity to tell me I can't have a look at it. If there's commercial sensitivities and human resources issues that need to be backed out as adjudicated by a privacy commissioner or someone, okay, I can buy that. But, fundamentals as what we should do with our oil equity assets, what we should do with Bull Arm, which has been dealt with, what we should do with the NLC, or anything else. It'd be nice to have a look at something that me and you paid for. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Charlie, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Morning.
Paddy, 4 quick points. I'll try to be quick. That voting at 16, I'm in favour of that, but I'm also in favour of a proper education for high school people so they understand today's issues, especially mental health issues, climate issues, and food issues, plus. So, well and good on that one. As far as the people leaving Cabinet, it's definitely a case of rats leaving the ship. Not very many cabinet ministers want to serve as backbenchers, and I'm convinced that they know they're going to be kicked out, as they should be. Not only the travel nurses fiasco, But I think they now realize that the MOU, that's a big blockbuster coming that's going to be very, very bad, and they're going to have to try to defend that. And leading into that, I don't know if anybody's read Gabe Gregory, his address to the keepers. When muskrat started, for about 6 months, I was kind of in favor of it until I got the full story, I felt. And I was kind of in favor of the MOU for a few weeks. This is a very, very, very bad deal. When they say it's much like the 69 deal, they're not wrong. And if you take the time, I think it's about an hour, to listen to Gabe Gregory, you will see it's very close to it. There's too much locked in for too many years. There's environmental assessments when you do that Gull Island that need to be done in this day and age, not what they did years ago. There's too much debt accrued by Newfoundland Hydro and I guess the Newfoundland government indirectly. And I won't say any more, but if you read that, this is not a deal that's going to fly. And I hope that when the progressive conservatives get in, they'll renegotiate this to make it. The money going to Quebec compared to going to Newfoundland is a joke, as the other contract was.
I gave it a.
I don't know if you want to comment before I go to the next one.
I will. It's on my weekend list, the Gabe Gregory. Someone sent me a video clip and a transcript, so I'll have a look at it. I think most of it is also posted on Uncle Gnarly's blog. So that's
please read it. It's so right on, and it's done in a way that you can understand it. Sorry to interrupt you, okay?
Yeah, in the quick skim, I guess I owe it to myself to give it a very comprehensive, thoughtful read, because some of it I didn't really know, to be honest with you. Insofar as, leaving and not running for re-election because of this one issue with the Upper Churchill MOU, it's a popular sentiment in my email inbox, but what I will say is, if you were around and voted for it, that doesn't go away. It doesn't matter if you're on the ballot again. So when people have this conversation 2, 5, 10 years from now, they'll remember exactly who was involved. I mean, because put it this way, if people are looking for someone to blame, I'll use that word, about Muskrat, then there's the same names come up all the time. It's Gilbert Bennett, it's Ed Martin, and it's Danny Williams. Because when people were involved, you don't get to pretend you weren't there. Every Liberal in caucus, in government, voted in favour of the MOU, and they required the support of independent members and the NDP. So everybody knows who voted to pass the MOU off to the next stages. So I get why people think and say that, but just because you're not on the ballot doesn't mean that you will not be spoken about, whether it's a good deal, a bad deal, it's lucrative into the future, or whether it's just another layer of debt. So I don't think you get to avoid it because of the decision to step down.
Problem is, if they stay in, they have to defend, especially just before the election, and I don't think they want to do that. But I think there's several reasons. I think they see the writing on the wall as well for the other things as well. And what Wayne came on with, that's shocking. But anyway, that's an whole topic. I can't believe they'd vote themselves like that in secret. But anyway. You had two callers there. One was on the tariff thing and the other one on Israel. So a couple of quick comments there. It's very easy to let the ego, especially when Trump announced that the Ontario Premier found out that when his ego got control of him and he announced they were going to cut off electricity, you can see change very fast because he realized the implications. With potash, let's take potash alone. If we use that as a weapon, cutting off that to the U.S. would be, many say, an unnecessary escalation of the thing, and it will also threaten food supply in both countries because they use it in all those crops, and we buy 45 billion from them. So we're hurting ourselves when the product comes back here, and. As far as potash, look what it would do to Saskatchewan. So would we say the same for seafood? Let's cut off all seafood as a weapon here in Newfoundland.
We've done something like it in the past.
What's that?
We've done something like that in the past. Look no further than the fact that when we were trying to ratify CETA, our trade agreement with the European Union, it came with doing away with our minimum processing requirements, and we were happy enough with it. Why? Because we were going to get compensated. And at that time, it was $400 million for fishery-related projects in this province. Of course, that went by the wayside, and it didn't manifest itself the way it was first announced. Same thing could happen with potash. I mean, the Americans do it. The Americans subsidize agriculture to the hilt every single year, every single crop. So if there was some sort of withholding X percentage of potash, then in the big bad world of socialism, like it is in the United States regarding agriculture, Saskatchewan could be compensated. We don't have a whole lot of arrows in the quiver, right? That's one thing that we all have to be painfully aware of. And every reciprocal tariff does come with a dollop of pain for Canadian taxpayers, Canadian consumers.
They would look to other sources if that was kept up. There's other countries like Belarus and Russia that would supply it gladly. And why would we want the American public to hate us? Many of them, I know they keep saying to me, we still love you on Scrabble. Turning them against us would not be a good thing at this stage. One guy said to me, "Why would you react in kind a long time ago?" And when my ego was in full tact, I said, "We have to do that," and so on. I thought a lot about that. We have to be careful of our reactions, like the Ford one, and I would say like the potash one. It's very easy to have bravado and so on, but I don't think a lot of us know the implications, and I think Carney and the people working with him do.
I think they do. I think negotiating a little bit more quietly than the other side of the table is probably a very, very wise thing to do. But we can't roll over in full either. I mean, when you have a completely unpredictable bargaining partner, then what do you do? Look, if anyone had a base understanding of what it would take to satisfy a new trade deal, then I'd be happy enough to hear it. Was it about the border? Nonsense. Was it about fentanyl? No. Was it about the digital sales tax? No, because if it was, then we'd have a deal. But we don't.
There's a lot in between than going for a tit for tat, and we don't have the leverage that they have. We're certainly more dependent on them. There's a lot of in between rather than trying moves like that and rolling over. But anyway, the last thing I want to comment on, that woman called about Israel and so on. That was very shocking when she said, I believe every 15 hours in the last 20 months they've been shipping weapons to them as they slaughter people. By the way, their old Prime Minister Olmert came out and said that what Israel is doing is a war crime. And I don't know how you can have a figure like that who understands it completely can come out and say that if it's not true. But anyway, what's happening there? Every morning you wake up, 15 killed, 25 killed at a aid station, passing out food. They are acting like worse than the Nazis, some people would say. What has gone wrong with Israelis that they don't stand up to that government? He knows. He's just made war on Syria. He knows that if he stops fighting, he's out. He's out on his rear. But anyway, what they're doing is so shameful and so against their religion. It's hard to imagine.
I always try to ensure that I have, the merit or the veracity behind some of the stories that come through my social media feed every day. I'll start with that. Israel has bombed 4 different nations' capital cities this year. And I do also include the messenger with messages for the most part. There's absolutely a well-documented personal vendetta between Netanyahu and Olmert. So how much of that is that versus how much of that is a reasonable take, I have no idea. But, I always try to include the messenger and the message because sometimes that has a great way of influencing how we discern and validate and understand what people are saying. Well, that's just me.
There's trouble between Olmert and Netanyahu because of Netanyahu's policies. He's following that religious right who want to clear with the West Bank and Gaza of Palestinians. That's their ultimate goal. You can understand why there would be animosity between them. He sees that he's gone completely rogue and that he is a war criminal. But anyway, as far as the attack, going back to the attack on Israel, they knew that was coming. I believe fully they welcomed some kind of attack. I don't think they realized it would be as bad as it was. They fully intended to go in after Hamas, and they got their wish. Anyway, that's my opinion on it.
Fair enough. Appreciate your time, Charlie.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to Stereo. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning for the PC member for Bonavista. That's Craig Party. Good morning, Craig. You're on the air.
Paddy, good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Is that a bad phone line, David? Or we're good? Go ahead.
Okay, good. Thank you.
No problem.
I've had just a couple of things I call in on, Paddy. Number one, I'd like to talk about the Chance Harbour fire in our district. And I'd also like to talk about the interactions of one of my constituents with the Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services.
Okay.
But I want to start on the Chance Harbour fire. We're saddened and disheartened to know about the loss of property, and I think we're probably around 30 cabins now and property owners that have lost their property in this fire. Most people are tuned into it, and I get a lot of comments even from outside the district. What's unique about this one is that we've had the video provided, from the water of the fire that was engulfing the property that we've had there. So it's been sad. We're glad that there's no loss of life. We were worried about the Jamestown, Winterbrook communities, but again, the winds were favorable for the community point of view, but again, unfavorable for the cabins that would be involved. But so we get a lot of people that we would thank for their efforts, from the local fire department, the Lethbridge area, the RCMP, the forestry officials that both on the ground and in the air. We've got a ground game going on there now with the ground search and rescue from Bonavista, from Clarenville, and the Lethbridge LSD has been phenomenal in communications with the public and even with the air quality, opening up the facility that if any residents in the area that would wish to get a reprieve from the smoke or would rest better knowing that would be out of that area, then they had opened up the fire all there. So I think the outreach from the public is one that stands out in my mind, Paddy. We talk about Newfoundland, the kindness of the people, but it's constant that people are reaching out to offer rooms in their house, people to come to park their RVs from the community on their front lawns, storage space in case they had to evacuate for people that were moving things out. And basically the doors were open for all the residents in that area with a very warm embrace. So it does speak well of the people. And I just thought I just wanted to share that. And we're hopeful that the rain will come. The heat wave has been taken down, or the heat warning has been taken down, so that should be favorable as well going forward. So we wish all the best.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I know there's some good heavy rains coming in Labrador. Hopefully that doesn't create some of the problems we've seen in Quebec with the flooding. But a bit of rain coming in Central. Look, we all desperately need a little bit. I know people enjoy these clear, blue sky, sunny days. I get it. But it's just so bone dry that it puts every area of the province in just a bit of a heightened risk. So a little bit of rain is most welcome, I would suggest.
100%. Good point. On the healthcare matter, Paddy, I've had a young constituent in my district who was going through to become a helicopter pilot. And through Transport Canada, it's a very comprehensive program, and they went through all the different components of that. One of the components that they had to do through Transport Canada was a sleep latency test that had to be done. So on March the 14th, at St. Clair's in 2024, she went in and had the assessment done. The last component for her license at that time was that test result. She was communicating, her family was communicating, looking for the result, because there's a time component with Transport Canada on all the other components that she completed, understandably. It had a limitation of whether it be 6 months, 8 months. But anyway, this young lady didn't get a result back of that test through many people's efforts. Flew to Toronto on Wednesday to get the test done on Thursday, with the result expected early next week. And I would say, as far as the communication that has gone in on this particular one, I just think is disheartening to know that that result didn't come out. And it's not on a physician. It's not. It's on Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services that they didn't at least give an indication, even when it may be. But surely, goodness, we're looking at 16 months is a little beyond what anybody would ever imagine to get a result back.
Yeah, I completely understand. It's really interesting to me that you said that, because there was a family reached out to me last week with the exact same circumstance. Maybe it's the same people, I don't know. But they were taking the multiple sleep latency test, and it was for the exact same thing. It was to become a pilot. I think not for a helicopter, maybe for a regular aircraft, if I remember the email correctly. And maybe it's the same family, I don't know. But even if we're just told that somehow, some way, the results of your test have been misplaced, let's do it again. You know, just something more than 16 months later, but nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah. Number one is that I found out that they weren't misplaced. So that's what I had thought as well. They weren't misplaced.
Where are they?
They're not misplaced. Well, they're in the system waiting to be read, but I think the Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services is well aware that they've got some issue with the reading of the results within the current system, that they're not. So this young constituent, like the one that reached out to you, there are numerous who did this test, and I would think maybe every test done over the past 12 months or beyond for this particular assessment do not have a result. And like I said, that is ridiculous.
Yeah, because this is just reading. You know, you get to put the sensors on when you're going to nap. It's for identifying things like narcolepsy and all kinds of stuff.
Sure,
but
it is.
EEG, EOGs. I mean, we must have a pretty heavy roster of technicians who can read this.
Sure, but if you have something within the system that's causing this delay, then engage somebody outside the province or some other group that can say, listen, read the results. So this young lady, 5 months ago, and I wrote the minister back then as well, even to release the results and even have somebody out of province to read the results, but that wasn't even forthcoming. So I think this young lady did everything she could, and I wouldn't be surprised that one of her family members will be calling in sometime in the near future. But very disappointing. It'll cost this young person who's been doing this for 3 years now to get the license, ready to get the license for gainful employment, and only have to wait on this. But now, on top of that, to have to spend some thousands of dollars to go out and get the test redone, because they couldn't even attain the results, nor have the test that was done read. So I just think that was very sad, and I just wanted to share. I'm very disappointed in this particular aspect, and all I could do was apologize to her that many people tried their best, but very unfortunate.
Yeah, unnecessary. Craig, I appreciate your time. Thanks for the call.
Okay. Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
It's Craig Party, PC member for Bonavista. 16 months, long time to wait for test results. Okay. Let's see here. Let's take a break. For those of you in the queue, appreciate your patience. We'll get to you right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 4. Say good morning to Deatra Walsh, the Make Your Mark coordinator at Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador. Good morning, Deatra. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you this morning?
Great today. Thank you. How about you?
I'm good. I'm calling because if anybody hasn't heard, October the 2nd is the general municipal elections across the province, and also the elections for local service district committees. So it's a very, very exciting time. I know there's lots of political talk right now, but the local government elections in our province are coming up, and it's so important to get people out to vote, to get people out running, to get people involved, and to get people more engaged in local government writ large.
I agree, as you know. You know, it's one thing when we talk about voter apathy, which is a very difficult one to broach, but trying to get more and more people who are community-minded to come out and run, even though we know that sometimes councillors have a fairly thankless job, just like members of the House of Assembly or members of Parliament. And we've had elections, municipally speaking, in the past where we didn't even have enough candidates to fill all the chairs in the council chamber. So we've got to put forward our best foot here. I think Make Your Mark has made an important positive change, or difference anyway.
Absolutely, and thank you for saying that. I mean, the Make Your Mark campaign, which is It's run under Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador. Of course, it's supported by Municipal Affairs and Community Engagement with the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador. But we do this ahead of when the municipal elections are happening, to really kind of ramp it up a little bit, because unfortunately, and to your point, this is arguably the most important order of government for people, and yet they have the fewest resources and sometimes receive the least amount of attention, whether it's through just knowledge of what's happening or, again, people getting out to vote. So we really think that there are a lot of people in our communities who may be on the fence about running, or who may be even thinking, well, I don't know if I can do it. But our message is, look, if you're a parent, if you're working at the grocery store, you could be anyone, and you would be good, and you could work, and you could do the work on council. I mean, anybody is able to engage, and as you said, there's so many people who are community-minded, for sure. 100%.
So exactly how does the campaign work? Are there fundamental specifics involved in the campaign?
Absolutely. So we had a bit of a soft launch in May at the MNL Symposium, which happens every year. And we've got our website up, which is makeyourmarknl.ca, and we have a very robust ad campaign. We're working with an agency to have that more across all the channels and in the public. But one thing that we have been doing, and that I've been directly involved in, and I'm excited to talk about it, is the Municipal Monday podcast. A lot of people say, look, I don't... Even potential candidates, I don't really know what happens. I don't understand how the governance works. What about policy? What about legislation? And anymore, people don't necessarily want to read large documents. They want to hear it. So we do a podcast every Monday, and we're doing it right up until the election time. And so far, we've talked to people about policy. We've talked to people about governance versus operations. We've talked about incivility. We've talked to people about municipal politics as a stepping stone. Next week, we're going to talk about leading in a small town and then leading in a city. So it's a phenomenal way to get information directly from folks who are working in the sector, or have been on council, or have been, MPs. All kinds of folks have been talking to us. And it's an hour of your time, and you can catch it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you catch podcasts, or go to the website and check it out. And I have to say, one more exciting thing is that it has been named one of the 5 Newfoundland and Labrador podcasts you should be listening to by the Muse. And I feel it's a pretty good thing when students and those who are politically engaged and young people say, you should be listening to this. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I appreciate the invitation. I'm not unable to make it at that time frame, unfortunately. But good luck with it. You're always welcome on the program to give it a pump, or send me an email so I can pump the tires on the podcast a little bit too. So hopefully it'll get more and more engagement.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening, please just go to where your podcasts are, check out Municipal Monday and listen in. Lots of great conversations there.
Appreciate your time, Deatra. Good luck with it.
Okay, thanks so much.
You're
Bye
welcome.
now.
Bye-bye. It's Deatra Walsh, Make Your Mark Coordinator at Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador. Need to get the candidates out. Just think about it out loud. We've had several communities last go around didn't have enough candidates to even fill all the chairs in the council chambers. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to the CEO at the Newfoundland and Labrador Autism Society. That's Paul Walsh. Hi, Paul. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Great today. Thank you very much. How about you?
Great, thank you. Wanted to share with your listeners today about a very special event happening tomorrow, Saturday, July the 19th. It's billed as a backyard concert, but you have to see this backyard because it's huge, and it's hosted by the Snellgrove family. Chris, Susie, and Ryan are very, very close to our work, and it's being held in the beautiful community of Hearts Delight, Islington, at their residence on 100 Country Road. It's an all-day concert, 12:30 to 8 o'clock. A huge lineup of talent, Rodney Slade, Blair Lane, Trevor Smith, many, many others. Special guests, just an amazing event that was held. They had a similar one, I think it was about 3 years ago. And it was both beautiful, because Trinity Bay is beautiful, and also just an outstanding place to be. Very family friendly, hot dogs and hamburgers, admission and food by donation, and the family is very dedicated to the work that we do around neuroinclusion, especially as it relates to recreational opportunities across the province. So they're donating the entire proceeds of this concert to our work around the province, with and especially outside of St. John's in terms of recreation programs. As well, there's a 50-50 of the same proceeds going there. So it's just a brilliant event. Cannot thank the Snellgrove family enough. Ryan, their son, actually was the MC at our first conference about 4 years ago. Just an amazing family, so can't thank them enough. They have some sponsors as well that I'd like to mention, including the Hair Factory, Clark's Liquidation in Harbour Grace, Garland's Trust Plant in Carbonear, Let It Be Events, the Victoria Carpet Shop, Avalon Osteopathy, Ventec Total Ventilation Solutions, and everybody who has the opportunity to come out and everybody who's contributed to this. We can't thank them enough. And if you have the chance to be there, even to drop in for an hour or two, it's going to be a brilliant day because the weather's wonderful, and it'll just be the most heartwarming and entertaining event you've ever participated in. So
Paul,
really looking forward to being there.
Absolutely. Just to give it a little bit more focus, talk about some of the recreational opportunities that you're speaking of and what difference you think it's making in people's lives.
Well, the family events, the recreational events are very focused around being neuroaffirming, and that means that you're creating a welcoming space and a safe space for people of all different neurotypes to be themselves and to participate in things that they don't otherwise have the opportunity to be in. Whether that's upcoming this week, this month is our weekend summer camps, 4 different camps, including our first camp in Labrador, or just a bowling night or a swimming night or a community night or any of these events, really putting together things that are safe neuroaffirming spaces for people so they can participate and they can equitably enjoy the things that other people take for granted, and they can feel safe.
It's important stuff. Unless you have a family member on the spectrum or people in your social circles, you probably aren't fully aware of exactly what we're talking about. But and I don't know how far down we want to go about, just how different diagnosis is these days and supports and services that need to be enhanced, whether it be recreational or otherwise. So this is an important opportunity for people to get out, maybe learn more about it, contribute to the cause. So Paul, before we let you go, the details one more time, the where, the whens.
Absolutely. So it's tomorrow, Saturday, July 19th, in Hearts Delight, Islington, at the home of Chris, Susie, and Ryan Snellgrove at 100 Country Road in that community. Runs from 12:30 to 8 o'clock. Admission by donation, food by donation, so fully very accessible to all. There'll be a 50-50 raffle there, and there'll be a tremendous amount of people that you can sit down and talk with and celebrate life with in this beautiful province.
Appreciate the time, Paul. Good luck with it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You have a great day.
The very same to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Paul Walsh, the CEO at the Autism Society of Newfoundland and Labrador. Let's take a break. When we come back, plenty of time left for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1 and say good morning to Cheryl Nash, a Mount Pearl Paradise Chamber of Commerce Ambassador. Good morning, Cheryl. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. How about you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Patty, I just wanted to call in today to let listeners know about an exciting day for the Chamber. Today is actually our 40th anniversary. Our Chamber started on July 18th in 1985. And, since then we've seen so much growth with the Chamber. Currently, we have 2 staff. We have a board of directors of 9 people and 5 ambassadors who work so tirelessly to make sure that our members feel supported, and we're always there to answer any questions. And currently, to date, we have over 270 members with the Chamber, so it's very exciting.
What are you doing to commemorate?
So this year is our birthday bash. So we had some events lined up over the summer, and they can all be found on our website and social media outlets. Currently, what we are doing now until for the next few weeks is our birthday bash bingo. So we have a number of businesses in the Mount Pearl and Paradise areas that are supporting this initiative. So with the bingo card, you can pick up your bingo card at any of these businesses, and then you get your stamp. And throughout the next few weeks, if you can visit all the establishments, get in, see what their business is about, Make sure you're getting your stamp, and then at the end of the day, at the end of the event, they can submit their card for a chance to win a grand prize.
This is apropos of nothing, but Cheryl, how does one become an ambassador for the Chamber of Commerce? Are you a member who's taken on the role of your own accord, or how does that work?
So you can submit an application to our staff, and when a position is open, if you have the great qualifications, if you're a person who is there to support people, who is there to answer questions, to make sure that you're really making the members feel supported. If you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to the staff at the Mount Pearl Paradise Chamber of Commerce, and they're always happy to chat and answer any questions, and they're there for support.
Cool, interesting. Are you a business owner member of the Chamber?
No, so I'm an ambassador with the team, and we're one of the members of the Chamber. Fair
enough. Because had you been a business owner in either Mount Pearl or Paradise, I just wonder what it looks like and sounds like at some of these meetings, given what the agency created called Advantage St. John's, which was an economic type of regional development. St. John's, Paradise, and CBS. Mount Pearl was in until they were out at the 11th hour. I just wonder how that conversation may have sounded around the table.
It's all about growth and making those great partnerships. You know, we have a really strong team now. We have fantastic members, and if there's any businesses in the Mount Pearl Paradise areas that are not members of the Chamber, it's certainly worth the reach out. There's really great benefits. And like I said, it's just the support. We're there to make sure that everyone's succeeding and doing anything we can, answering any questions. So, you know, it's a very team environment, and, you know, our members, they are awesome.
Happy anniversary to all of the members and the Chamber proper, and I appreciate your time this morning, Cheryl.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheryl Nash, Ambassador of the Mount Pearl Paradise Chamber of Commerce. Let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 2. Vic, you're on the air. Hi, Vic.
Good morning, Paddy. Listening audience, thanks for taking my call.
No problem.
How are you this morning?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you?
I'm pretty well, thank you very much. I guess I'd like to comment on the Auditor General's report. What authority really does she have? I know we see her report regarding, I think, the overspending or spending that really hasn't been, I don't think, justified how it was done. I understand, I think it's almost $500,000. My concern now, I guess I have questions. We have a premier that has not been elected by the public. Now, obviously, I think this is the third time in my memory that we have a non-elected premier here in Newfoundland. And if I remember correctly, I think one of those unelected premiers really renegotiated the Churchill Falls agreement with Nova Scotia. Cool. And I think by doing it, I think Nova Scotia got a much better deal than Newfoundland has.
What are we talking about, Newfoundland and Nova Scotia? I'm sorry?
As I say. And now, yes, I'm talking about our governments who are in presently premiers not elected by the public. We have a premier here in Newfoundland now, has not been elected by the public.
He has, though. I mean, being the premier...
By public? By the party.
Well,
the party has elected him, but the public hasn't. Now, all this, the spending, or $500,000 they've spent, I think the Auditor General has questioned that now. So I think what our present government should do now, I think they should resign and call an election.
Well, there's an election coming, whether anyone likes it or not.
Well, it's coming, but it's not till October, I understand.
Yeah, I think we're probably better served in the fall. People tune out in the summertime. I think a summer election is generally a mistake. But just, whether or not people...
Well, actually, I never was in a favor of a party system. We should not have we should do away with the party system and get someone that's qualified to run the country. Right now, I mean, it seems like we're just we have people that are really not qualified or incompetent running our province.
Okay, just a couple of things, not to split hairs and not to just get into the weeds, but we don't elect premiers or we don't elect prime ministers. The person who's at the leadership position of whether it be provincially or federally, of the party that wins the most seats, they just automatically become the premier. So John Hogan has won in Windsor Lake a couple of times. So that's why he's the premier, because he won a leadership vote. And that's always the way it's going to work, whether or not you're the premier when you're running an election or otherwise. So we always just have parties elect leaders who become premiers.
Well, okay. Well, I don't agree with the party system. This is not being. We have a premier right now acting who has not been elected by the public.
I'm not going to go back and forth on that, because we don't elect premiers. That, it's just not something we do.
What do you mean we don't elect premiers? We don't. If you don't vote for your premier?
No.
You don't. I mean, if they have an election tomorrow, we have to vote for our premier, don't we?
No.
We don't.
No, because, for instance, if Tony Wakeham runs in Stephenville Port as leader of the opposition and the Tories win the most seats, he becomes the premier. If John Hogan runs in Windsor Lake and is successful, he becomes the premier, only because he's leader of the party.
So that's the party system. So from my point of view, it should be changed. I'm not a politician. I don't understand politics that well. But it seems to me this is not very democratic that you have the public don't elect the premier. Because I don't agree with the party system then, obviously, because what happens when they get in, all the people that contribute to the party with the most money, that's the people they favor and write policy and legislation, which in a lot of cases, from what I can see, has been influenced by the people that give them the most money.
Which might.
So that's my beef this morning. You had a gentleman call there a few weeks ago regarding the Hullabaloo Mi'kmaq band here in Stephen, I think in the West Coast. From what I understand now, they brought in a system, a point system. So what they've done, they disqualified those people, I understand, from indigenous eligibility. And I think they had over 100,000 applications. So by bringing in the point system, they reduced the applications to, I think, approximately 4,000. Now, from what I can read, I understand that the people that lost their indigenous cards had went to the court there in Cornerbrook, and I think it was Judge Marshall made some hurdle. I think they had to sort of rectify or do something. But I understand that now the Hullabaloo band has appealed that decision. The other thing I think is going on is there's a class action in terms of the Hullabaloo members. I don't know who the people are doing those courts or actions, but or what law firms, etc. But it seems like if you're indigenous, should not all those people be treated on the same? Should they not all have indigenous eligibility? So I was just wondering, what those people should be doing. Should they not probably write our new prime minister as seeing this as a federal file to certainly there's an injustice there also then, because you had people. I think this gentleman phoned in. I think some of his siblings has indigenous eligibility, but he doesn't, I think, because he's not living in a designated area. And so I think that the Prime Minister should look into that. Actually, that's another, I think. So what's the next step? What's your opinion?
Well, they got off on the wrong foot at the very beginning of all of this. They probably had a number in mind of people who would apply and be given status, but it came in tens of thousands more. So trying to put that toothpaste back in the tube was proven to be a real problem. When you have people who are siblings, grew up together in one community or another, and as adults spread out around for whatever reason, for jobs, for marriage, to join the military, to not get your status because you don't live in one community or another isn't exactly what status is about, as far as I could tell. And I don't have any Indigenous roots, so maybe I don't have a great understanding of it. But yes, it's a federal issue. It has to be dealt with at the federal level. Vic, anything else before we have to go?
No, and I thank you for taking my call, Paddy.
No
Have
problem.
a nice day.
The very same to you, Vic. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
And again, I'm not trying to get into to and fro here about unelected or elected premiers. And, you know, the thing regarding Vic's comment that, you know, all the money that gets poured into party politics and people in the general public think that curries favour with whoever lands in the seat of government, that's certainly the optics of it. That's what people think. For better or worse, that's exactly what most people think. To the point of electing premiers or electing prime ministers, if that's your worry, and if premiers had, or prime ministers had the type of power, say, for instance, the President of the United States has in their form of government, that just makes things worse. If you think money is ruining politics to begin with, if you voted directly for the leader of the province or the country, you're kind of asking for it to get even worse. Let's take a break. When we come back, Gary's next to talk about an oil company. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Good morning, Gary. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you doing?
I'm excellent. Thank you. How about you?
Thanks, Patty. I got a call this morning, Patty, and I should have known better. I knew it was a shakedown as soon as the phone's going off first thing in the morning. Get a call from the oil company, and probably about 18 months ago, bought a house, and it had an oil furnace. And obviously I was a little hesitant, but where the furnace was pretty new, had a service plan, and the house also has a mini split, that kind of alleviated those concerns. So fast forward 18 months, and I just get a quick call from the oil company saying they want to cancel my service plan because I haven't had enough oil delivered over the last year. And, obviously that's not something I was ever really thinking of, right? And, it's obviously a big concern of mine because having that service plan was a big reason why I even considered buying the house. Like if that furnace didn't have a service plan, there's no way I would have bought the house and stuff. And, for them to just kind of slap you with that, even after, I had probably $1,500 worth of oil delivered when I initially bought the house November 2023. And I've looked. I haven't burned any oil. I've probably burned less than a quarter of a tank over the last 18 months. But it seems like, there's somebody just looking to put hands in my pocket for a shakedown or whatever, because that just doesn't seem right, Patty.
Yeah, I think, now, you didn't sign the initial service agreement, so probably no one told you, but it's the same thing when, look, I'm not defending it because I think it's ridiculous. If you have an agreement, you have an agreement. But it's the same thing when people say that, I don't want a full tank, I only have X amount of money, and it's cold, can you please deliver me $100 worth of oil? And they'll be told, no, it's $250 minimum. That's because the subcontractors driving the trucks are not willing to drive around to deliver $50 or $100 worth of oil, number one. Number two, the service agreement thing should not come with a caveat. If you have an agreement, which is actually part of your service delivery contract with the company, it should just exist. I understand the bare minimum that you have to purchase or to order to get the delivery, but things like the service agreement, I don't know how they even can justify that being part and parcel with how much oil you burn. The fact of the matter is, you burnt some. That should be enough.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's kind of my concern as well. And the other thing is they're happy to come kind of fill you up and top me up. Maybe I could have spread that out over multiple years. You're right. I had no idea. This is the first I've ever kind of heard of. I had to burn so much oil each year, right? Like nobody really kind of walked me through that at all. And I did call even. I called them when I initially purchased the house to make sure it was active. And you know what? Nobody took the effort to kind of explain that to me, or they took no effort when I got a full truck delivered as well, right? So it just kind of leaves me in a bad spot. I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I haven't had any trouble with it. I know it's obviously the middle of the summer. It's not a big concern, but I don't want to be in a situation where now, a year from now, I'm looking at $5,000-$6,000 in repairs to a furnace that's been there, and it's all because they cut off my service plan because I didn't have enough delivered last year, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing for qualifying for things like oil rebates with the provincial government. They set minimums for delivery so that you qualify for rebates. How is it that you've been able to burn no oil in the last 18 months? You rely fully on like a central heat pump, or what is it that you're doing?
Yeah, so it's a mini split. The house is pretty small, so it's not a big house, right? It's only a small bungalow. So the mini split, it's crazy how like much it just heats the house. I've burned, I'd say, less than a quarter of a tank in those 18 months. So there's no way I'm ever going to be able to meet the requirement. And to be honest, Patty, I don't think the house ever met the requirement from the time that was ever installed, because when she told me it's 1,500 liters I needed to burn a year, that house is small. I don't know if they're burning that much, period. So would that be a factor? Like, just say if that was active for 5-6 years, that might have been not met any of the years, and they were happy to go along with it. Now all of a sudden they're looking to enforce it. But like I said, that would have factored in when I bought the house. If that wasn't active then, it would have mattered to me a bit. So, it just leaves me it just seems like I said, when the phone rang this morning, I knew it was a shakedown.
It's unfortunate. So when asked what you need to do, is there a minimum bit of oil that you can have delivered to keep your service contract intact? Did they walk you through next steps?
Not quite, but I wouldn't think that I would qualify for enough anyways, because like I said, I needed 1,500 liters, and a quarter of a tank's not going to cover that, and that's all I need. So what am I going to do? I'm not going to blast the heat and open the windows just to burn the oil, So, it just leaves you in a brutal situation.
Yeah, I was just curious if they gave you, what can be done here.
No options. Yeah, no options. They gave me no options. They just wanted to they wanted to cut it off. I told them I literally had just renewed in June. So obviously I'm not having that right away. So they're going to get back to me next week, and I'll see. But, I'm not optimistic on how that's going to go.
Keep me in the loop, though. Will you let me know, Gary?
Love to, Patty. Yeah, I'll get more informed. Like I said, it's the first, anybody looking to buy a house, if it has an oil furnace, I kind of checked all those boxes. I wanted to make sure, and I thought I did. And now 18 months later, I'm looking at my service plan getting canceled. I've had no issues with the furnace, but I'm just thinking down the road, right? And then to sell the house, now I have to sell the house without an active furnace plan. So I don't really know what to do about it all. I'd like to have that. I'm happy to pay, Patty. But, what I don't want to be doing is paying thousands of dollars for repairs for equipment I know nothing about.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to either. I appreciate the time, Gary. Keep me in the loop.
Thanks, Patty. Take care.
Welcome.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. Yeah, I mean, that is one of the things that I've heard. Look, not everybody has cash ready to go when they need anything in this world, including, say, some oil delivery. Remember, we used to get some calls a few winters ago, and someone would say, look, I only have $150, and if I could get $150 worth of oil, it would get me to my next paycheck or whatever it is so that I can order more. And then they're told, I think the number is $250, $250 minimum, and the rationale offered has always been that I think the vast majority of delivery trucks are subcontractors. They work for themselves. They drive around with the brand of the company they're delivering on behalf of on the side of their tank, but they are working for themselves. And so I understand if you are indeed a subcontractor, and just to get paid the base amount, if you had so many stops for $50, $100, $150, I understand why they don't want to do that, but it's always the oil companies that wear that public relations. All right, just checking on the Twitter box. We're VOCM Open Line. You know what to do. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. We know now that the old Waterford still has some services that are being delivered there in those old walls, but most have been moved into the new mental health and addictions facility. There has been some concerns with the fewer number of beds compared to the old Waterford, and exactly what the addiction services look like. We are told by NL Health Services that some of the things that might not be there, they're moving those types of supports out into the community. Exactly what that means, we're not entirely sure, but we're going to talk about that new facility right after this break, and then whatever you want to talk about, don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1 and say good morning to the independent member of the House of Assembly, Mount Pearl Southlands. That's Paul Lane. Paul, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you this morning?
Not too bad. How about you?
I'm not doing too bad. Paddy, I wanted to talk about, I guess, the drug problem in our communities, but before I do, I just want to make a comment on the story that broke on CBC this morning. I've heard rumblings about it for the last week or so, and I was, I guess, surprised as anybody when I had heard about it. But I think for Cabinet to sort of, just have their own meeting sort of in secret for a bunch of people to sit around the table and just basically vote themselves a raise, so to speak, or in this case, it's an increase in severance, but it's really the same thing. And to do that behind the scenes and for nobody to be made aware of, I think it's absolutely tone deaf when you consider the people that are struggling, certainly in this province. And when you look at the fact that when it comes to MHA compensation and so on, that it is done in a very public way through a independent committee, and everything is made public, and we can accept the raises if we get them, or we can choose not to accept them, and so on. But this was just done, like I say, behind the scenes, a group of people making a decision to benefit themselves. So obviously it's not something that I'm not going to support. I'm sure many people don't support it. And I would say that if you read the story, it indicates that Premier Hogan indicates, well, I wasn't there when the decision was made because he had stepped away to run for the leadership. And, you know, that may be the case. I don't know if he knew about it or if he didn't know about it. That's questionable. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't agree with it, like I'm sure most people don't, he's the Premier now. He's leading a cabinet. So I would call upon the Premier and the cabinet to simply rescind the policy. There may be a couple of members who have already left since the policy was put in place that may have benefited from this additional money, but certainly all the people who have announced over the last week or two, they're still there, presumably until the next election is called. So just rescind the order, and I call upon the Premier to do just that.
Is that something one person could or should do as opposed to a vote? Because I don't think this was one person in the room said, "Here's what we're doing," and everyone just says, "Okay."
Well, the cabinet can do it.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's a cabinet decision. So I say Premier Hogan, but obviously I guess what I would mean by that when they have their next cabinet meeting, that the Premier should take the lead on this and say to the cabinet, boys, this is not right. This should not have been done. I wasn't here. I don't agree with this. And they should collectively rescind the order. That's what I would say they should do.
Fair enough.
But anyway, that's not my decision to make, but I certainly call upon the Premier to take leadership and do just that. Paddy, as I said, the purpose of my call was to talk about the drug problem that we have, certainly not just in my community, but province-wide, and we know that. And I'm sure, and I really believe that when you hear about all these armed standoffs that we hear so many of, something that we never typically heard of in the past, not to the degree we do now, seems like every other week there's an armed standoff somewhere with the RNC. And when you hear about this, when you hear about people that I hear from my community about their vehicles being rifled through in the nighttime, sheds being rifled through, break-in entries, all this stuff, I really believe that, if not all, I'm not saying all of it, but I really believe a high proportion of that is related to drug activity and people with addictions and so on that are doing just about anything that they need to do to get that fixed because that's all they see at that time. And I guess in that light, I listened to Tina Oliveira, who was on speaking with you yesterday, and I just wanted to throw my support behind her and the efforts that her and her group are trying to make. I realize that there's, a couple of debatable issues, and I'm kind of with you on the Clean Needle program. I think that if someone has an addiction, that they're going to use a needle, whether it's clean or dirty, they're going to use it. So it's in all of our best interest to make sure it's a clean one. I guess that's my subjective brain, if you will, sort of questions that ideology, but I think my objective brain feels it's the right thing to do. But at the end of the day, I do agree with Tina in terms of these emergency shelters. These shelter situations are not good. And what we really need is we need places where people can get well. And then once they get well, then we need that transitional housing, if you will, with all full supports in place to keep people clean and sober. And that's where we've really, I think, fallen down on the job. And, I know sometimes people can be somewhat cynical and say, well, you choose a life of drugs, you choose a life of crime, whatever the case might be. But at the end of the day, one way or another, we are going to be paying for the side effects or the downstream effects of drug addictions in this province, one way or another, whether it be through our healthcare, whether it be our prison systems and our legal systems. So investing in people and trying to get them clean and trying to keep them clean and putting the proper supports in place, I think that will pay for itself in the long run. Plus, it's the right thing and the humane thing to do. So hats off to Tina and her group for all the work that they are doing in trying to promote this idea, trying to bring awareness and advocacy. And certainly I will be there on September the 11th. That's my plan when they have their rally to support that initiative. And I thank her for the work that her and her group are doing.
I don't know why it is that people give me a hard time when we talk about the safe needle exchange. Look, they're going to use people who are addicted don't make good decisions by and large. And, you know, with the amount of needles on the ground, whether they came from swap or otherwise, I don't know what that has to do with anything. Because if I can keep someone from getting HIV or hepatitis on top of their drug addiction for pennies on the dollar, I think I'm willing to do that. So I'll keep saying it because I still believe it. And then even after that conversation yesterday, it was specifically about, you know, I don't think giving people crack pipes is a good idea. I don't. But no. Clean needles, a different conversation. And someone wrote me an email saying, you're just enabling drug use. Look, nobody in this world has ever said, well, I'm going to use heroin because I can get a free needle. I mean, absolutely not, Paddy, and I agree with you. I think it's just I think it's sort of an emotional reaction, if you will, and I get it because you know, like I said, I'm sort of looking at it somewhat like you know, as I said, from the objective brain versus the subjective brain. You know, we were all taught growing up that drugs are bad for you and so on, and so you know, like I understand why people say that and they feel that way, but to your point, at the end of the day, they're going to do it anyway. And so whether it's a clean needle or a dirty needle, as you say, a dirty needle probably gets them with HIV and hepatitis, and then besides the human toll that takes, that's cost us even more money again. So it's in all of our best interests to find ways to reduce the harm, but at the end of the day, the main goal, and this is where I totally agree with Tina, is to do our level best to put programs and services in place to get people sober, and once they are sober, to keep them sober. Simply bringing someone in to a program and getting them off drugs and then leaving them to their own devices, leaving them precariously housed, where they're probably going to be in some shelter, in a room, sharing a room with someone who's doing drugs, that ain't going to work. And that's where we need those ongoing supports. And so I certainly support what she is saying, you know, in that regard. And as I said, when they have that rally on the 11th of September, I certainly plan on being there to support them because, you know, drugs is not something, and addictions is not something that everyone is comfortable talking about and so on. It might not be a popular subject and so on, but it's a very important one. And just because you don't have somebody in your life who's addicted to drugs today, that's not saying that you won't have somebody with an addiction tomorrow. It can happen to absolutely anybody. And the impacts of drug use does impact us all. Like I say, when it comes to a lot of crime that's happening, a lot of shoplifting that you hear about that's happening, which drives food prices up and everything else, a lot of that is related to people who are addicted, and they will do absolutely anything for that next fix. And that, like I said, that impacts us all. Yeah, and I will add to it is, you know, we can talk about the dollars and cents of addiction with criminal justice and the healthcare system and the rest of it. But just how many untold numbers of families have been ripped apart by addiction? So there's stuff out there we can't measure, and it has a huge impact on people's lives and on their families, which would extend to their relationships with their friends, which extend to their employment. So I mean, there's just a lot to this. Is why it's so complicated, which requires nuanced, massaged messages to really get to the bottom of things here. There's not a one size fits all. It's not a flip a switch and all of a sudden things are better. It's just not how anything that's complicated in this world works. Paul, I appreciate the time. I'm off to the news break.
Thank you, Patty, for your time. And once again, Minister Hogan, do the right thing, rescind the policy. This was a bad, I don't know whose idea this was, but it was certainly a bad one. Have a great one, Patty.
You too, Paul. All the best.
Okay. All right, bye.
Bye-bye. All right, time for the news. When we come back, William's going to kick off our final hour of the week, talk about the MSC Baltic 3. The operations continue to pump the oil out of that vessel that I think went aground about 5-6 months ago. Let's take a break. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 3. William, you're on the air.
Oh, yes, I was just wondering about the Baltic 3. I was wondering, after having the oil removed and the containers removed, I was just wondering what they intend to do, whether we're going to salvage or take her out.
I think they're going to try to eventually remove it, but of course none of that can happen until all of the heavy oils, I think, are out, but there's still some fuel on board. So until that's all out, I don't think there's a next steps that's out there. But my understanding is they plan on removing it. Yeah.
I was just of the understanding that most of that was being completed, but I guess there's some more to be left. Yeah. But is this Patty?
Yes, it is.
Patty, there's one thing I want to say to you. Talking about, I'm 80 years old, and I'm talking about I had children and I had grandchildren, and the thing is about I take hard what's going on today. I don't know how we're going to alleviate the problem, but I think the more people talk about, like Paul Lane said, and the more the people try to get their heads around it, the better, because we're losing a lot of young people far too soon, because we all know that the population is getting older, and of course we need the young people.
No question.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, but it's like I said, I know it's costing the government or costing the company or somebody a lot of money, but the thing is about it, I hope sooner than later that they can accomplish something and have the ship taken care of.
I agree 100%. Yeah, it's got to go eventually, and hopefully it goes safely. So
yes, I agree with that. But I'm glad of one thing: everybody got off safe. That's the main thing.
Absolutely right. I agree with you, William.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for taking my call, and I will be talking to you sometime in the future. So thank you for taking my call.
I appreciate your time, and have a nice weekend, William.
You too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Let's go to line number 4. Good morning, Tom. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Very well. How about yourself?
I got a bit of a stomach flu, but other than that, I'm fine. Patty, I just wanted to update you on the situation we're faced here in Kilbride with our water. We spoke before about this, and some of the other people have spoken. Some of the councillors have spoken about it. For the benefit of your listeners, in 2021, at the direction of the federal government, the City of St. John's had to connect the Gould sewer line to the main sewer line in the city, which meant those of us in Kilbride on Babels Road who had neither water nor sewer, they put the line through us to connect the two together. As a result, of course, to get the grade, they dug a trench 23 feet deep, which was lower than all of our wells, because we all have surface wells. And of course, that created the French drain. People aren't familiar with a French drain. It's simply a big trench in the ground that's filled with crushed stone to drain away water. And to make it even worse, because there was so much water, they put a big membrane down on the other side of the road, which essentially blocked the water from getting to all of our wells. Today, as I'm speaking to you, I've had 3 calls from people to ask what we're going to do about this, and we're going to have another meeting on Sunday afternoon at my home at 1 to discuss what we're going to do. But Councillor Ridgely has been fighting tooth and nail for us on this, and at the last council meeting, he presented a brief that I prepared showing what it was like prior to the construction and what it's like now. And prior to the construction, we had water everywhere. The old saying, water everywhere. Well, that was the situation. I had actually had 4 sump pumps in my basement to handle the water. Now, of the 10 of us that are caught in no man's land, 5 people have dry wells, have absolutely no water. And the city is denying that they've done anything wrong, despite the fact that they put 8 artesian wells in at a cost of $500,000 during the construction phase. They're asking us to spend in excess of $10,000 to hire a hydrologist, which will simply confirm that they caused the problem, with no assurance that we will get water. And here we are faced right now with a number of the people here with no water. Yesterday, I went to Donovan's and picked up 2 1,000-liter totes to people, and the city won't even deliver some water, use a fire truck to deliver water to them. We're in a state of shock here as to why the city of St. John's is treating us the way they're treating us.
It's a fair question. And my comment, which drew the ire of some, is that if people have lived in the area for decades and not once ever, even during dry summers where we were told we couldn't wash the car, we couldn't water the lawn because it was so dry, yet those wells never went dry. And now all of a sudden they are. I wonder why.
Not a problem. In 2012, it was the driest season of the past 25 years. I sent that to council. We had half the rain we had in 2024. None of the wells were affected. In 2024, wells went dry. I don't know what we have to do. I know what we have to do. We have to put a new council in there because obviously council is taking the advice of the engineers that caused this problem. Now, many of the councillors have it. That's my daughter's dog. She's in Florida, barking right here now at the cat. Excuse me for that. They won't listen. They won't make a decision. These council people are being led by their noses, and they simply will not, make a motion. Like I presented them with a proposal that dig the 10 wells for us at a cost of a third of what they spent for 8. And what some of the people now are proposing is that we're going to be going to City Hall and demonstrating. And here the summer games are coming. And the city of St. John's wants to see a bunch of senior citizens with walkers and wheelchairs hanging around City Hall, showing all of the people here how we're being treated. Well, then continue to ignore us, because that looks like what we're going to have to do. It's absolutely incredible that people 70 plus, some even 80, are home now and they can't shower. They can't flush their toilets. And nothing has happened here in the last 75 years to affect our water other than the fact of this road construction. I don't understand. I'm fine. I'm hooked up to my neighbor who has an artesian well. He had the big one as soon as he moved in a couple of years ago. I'm fine. I have water. But my neighbors don't. And, I really feel for them.
Yeah, me too. People keep sending me pictures. I get emails from your neck of the woods all the time, and understandably so. I'd be furious if I didn't have any water as well. Sometimes, and I say this all the time when we talk about the 180 plus communities on boil order advisory, some of those for decades, and here I am just taking it for granted. I turn on the tap, there it is, clear and clean and cold and fresh, and it's a luxury that I certainly take for granted, but I shouldn't.
No, and I did prior to this happening, because I had so much water in my home that water was never an issue. I could fill my hot tub, wasn't a problem. The kids wanted to go on the front lawn with the hose and go silly bugger, it was fine. I had no issues with that. To fill my hot tub last year, I couldn't do it. I couldn't fill it. I just sat there. There was no water in it. This year, fortunately, I could fill it from my neighbor. But, it's going to get, if I didn't have my neighbor feeding me the water now, the water's in my hot tub, I have to use it to flush my toilets. Just imagine that. People just got to imagine that if you can't even use your bathroom and you're a senior citizen, one of the residents here is called the seniors advocate and asked if she could intervene to see what they could do. Because this is senior abuse of the worst kind. I spoke with our MP, Tom Osborne, who said he was going to call down to the city to see if he could wake him up down there. Because Tom knows this area really well, because he represented us. And he knows that we used to complain often about the water situation, too much of it. Now we have none whatsoever.
It's a crying shame. Tom, I appreciate your time. Anything else before we go to the break?
No, that's all I have, except to remind the people who are listening, especially your councillors, grow a set. In the name of goodness, grow a set and do what we elected you to do. And that is to help us here, not listen to these people who made the mistakes and refuse to acknowledge they made the mistakes and give us a bit of water so we can at least flush our toilets. Thank you for taking my call this morning.
Thanks, Tom. All the best. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Let's take a break. When we come back, Jerry's in the queue to talk about the Marystown shipyard. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 2. Jerry, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Patty. How are you?
Doing well. How about you?
Not too bad. Jerry Brenton from Marystown. I'm a first-time caller, and I'm understandably a little bit nervous, so you'll have to put up with me a little bit.
Take your time. Go ahead.
Anyway, I was Patty. Something's been on my mind for a long time. And then yesterday I was down in the harbour, just helping a friend of mine with his crab pots. And I looked down in the bottom of the harbour, and the cowhead facility is there, and there's not a thing there. And I looked back up to the top of the harbour, and the Marystown shipyard is there, and there's not a thing there either. And it's just a disgrace, and it's so sad that a place that was so viable as Marystown was, and the whole Burin Peninsula, it was so valuable and busy, and workers were there, and that these facilities are gone really. And if something doesn't happen soon, they'll never come back. It's very sad.
Absolutely. I hear from people on the peninsula all the time talking about just how different it is with one of the major fish plants gone, with the Marystown shipyard shuttered. It is obviously economic problem for the entirety of the Burin Peninsula. So, I mean, even if it wasn't going to be a shipyard like it was for decades into the future, even the plans for it to be, whatever, an aquaculture centre of excellence or whatever it is that Paul Antle had in plans to call it Marbase, move on, my understanding is nothing's happened there either.
No, there isn't anything. There isn't anything happening here. It was storing feed for a while, and now that's been taken away. But the plan was for shipbuilding and ship repair, and that's what that facility is for. And and it was good at it. Like we were really good at this toward the end. I started working in Marystown in 1978, and I left in 1998 on my own accord. But at the end of it, we were really good at building ships. Look at the mess room with our ferries. Like there's at least 5 ferries is required by this government over the next 5 or 6 or 7 years. And the only reliable ones that we have out there now are the 3 that were built here, the Flanders, the Gallipoli, and the Beaumont Hamel. We built good ships, and just to let someone come in and buy it and sit on it is just not good enough. It's not good enough for this town. I don't think it is anyway.
I agree. Where was the Hazel McIsaac built?
That was built in Marystown, but it was built at the Cowhead facility.
Oh, okay, very well.
So now there is a big difference. All the other ships that they were built up in Marystown, and they're world class vessels. Most of them are still sailing around the world. You know, and we evolved over the years, like because the shipbuilding's in our blood here. Like before the shipyard was even here, they were building longliners and schooners down on a place it was used to be called the Beaches. You know, it's in our DNA here. Just shipbuilding is, right?
And I mean, there's so much shipbuilding work to go around these days. Some of the national contracts are keeping shipyards right around the country, around the world busy. And yet here we had a proven track record at Marystown, and that's well behind us. You know, in addition to it being so quiet, if I remember correctly, Marbase bought the I think it's like 35 acre facility down there, bought it for $1 million. Me and you, the taxpayer, we chipped in $2 million to do an environmental cleanup, and it's still idle.
Yeah, it's not acceptable. I don't think it is. And Teddy, we all know besides the provincial ferries, like our federal government now, whether they like it or not, they're forced to spend $60 or $70 billion a year on our military. And next year, it's going to go up to probably $140 billion a year. Like what a spot this shipyard would be for an extension onto the Halifax Navy shipyard or something along those lines, right?
Yeah, there's work out there to be had. And I can't recall the history of how and why it shuttered in the first place. I'd like to be able to go back and refresh my memory.
I left in 1998, and it was took over by a company in the United States, Freedy Goldman. And then it changed hands maybe once more, and then Kiewit.
Kiewit was there, yeah?
Yeah, they were the final ones on it, right? And Kiewit, in my opinion, is not a good community the company here. They're only interested in the big jobs, the billion-dollar jobs. They're not interested in ship repair and the reason why I'm harping on ships is because there, like you alluded to, there was a lot of ships left to build. There's always going to be ships to build, and we had that down. We had that down almost to a science here at the Marystown Shipyard, and it's so sad to see that knowledge instead of getting transferred to younger people, just going out the window.
Yeah, the boats that you referred to, they might be showing their age today, but they've been proven to be pretty reliable iron horse and workhorses over the years.
Oh, sure. I mean, they're all for 40 years old now, Patty.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, and the two supply ships that we built here, the Norseman and the Muscati, that was the pride of the Maersk fleet in St. John's for years. It was good quality workmanship and good workers, and it really shouldn't happen. I don't think it should happen.
Jerry, I think you're speaking for an awful lot of people who feel the exact same way.
You know, I just wanted to give a shout and just give my opinions on that. I've spoken to a lot of the leaders around. I've spoken to Jonathan. I've spoken to Jeff, and I've spoken to some members of the council. They all feel the same way, but there's nothing seems to get done about it. You know, it's just not not good enough. I don't think it is.
I appreciate your time as a first-time caller, Jerry. Do it again.
All right, thanks, buddy.
Thank you. Take care. Yeah, I mean, it is a shame, isn't it? Had a successful track record, and then it just became now a dustbin. Maybe that's unfair. I know Mr. Antle has spent millions of dollars at the facility on something or other, but still not operational. I mean, I think that sale is as old as 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Let's go to line number 4. Joe, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How you doing?
Doing okay, Joe. How about you?
Good. Well, we had some warm weather last 2 or 3 days, what?
It was warm in the bunk last night.
Yes, it was. Patty,
yeah.
I want to take a couple of minutes of your time now. Senior citizens, now the old age pension, are we getting our raise by?
There's a raise coming for pensions, yeah.
When is that supposed to be?
I don't know if I can recall a date right off the top of my head, but it's this year.
Would it be this month or one day?
I'm not really sure. I'll have to have a look.
Yeah. Well, when you look, announce it, will you?
I will. No problem at all.
Well, we had some fires going on it.
Yeah, I think there's 9 active fires on the go right now. Thankfully, in some of the areas that there are experiencing wildfires, there's some rain in the forecast, which is very welcomed.
Yes, there's right dark out this way now in Catlina.
Yeah, apparently the increase should have been applied to the pensions increase in January 2025, 2.7%. And old age security. I don't know what to tell you, but it was scheduled for January. Yeah, 2.7%. And old age security, 2.3%.
Yeah?
Yep. That was an increase from
I'll have to wait till next January to get mine, hello?
Well, I hope you get it before then, Joe, and I appreciate the call. Anything else you want to talk about?
Yes, one more second. Now,
Sure.
The young girl come across on the ferry. What happened to she? That 41-year-old girl.
I have no earthly idea. I mean, I guess the thought is that she went overboard, whether by accident or otherwise, I don't know, but they haven't found her yet. There's a search ongoing, but it's a pretty sad story. Got on the boat in North Sydney, didn't get off in Port of Basque.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah. Okay, and Paddy, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Joe. All the best.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, let's see here. That is a very sad story, and I hadn't been talking about it because I don't know what to say about it. I don't understand, or pardon me, I don't know the circumstances surrounding it, but the thought is, and I guess based on the way they're searching, is that I guess she went overboard. I don't know what else could have happened, but I'm not going to opine. It's a sad story. Let's take a break for the newscast. When we come back, we're speaking with you. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to the leader of the official opposition. He's the PC member for Stephenville Port-au-Port. That's Tony Wakeham. Good morning, Tony. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Paddy. It seems another day and another Liberal scandal, and I call it a scandal because I think it's scandalous that a Liberal cabinet secretly granted itself cash payments of up to $48,000 each if they lose their seat or even if they voluntarily retire. And we know so far we've had 8 Liberal ministers who have announced that they aren't running again. And if this policy is in place, that's almost $300,000 of taxpayers' dollars that will be going out the door. And I don't think that this should have ever been approved. I don't think you could turn around and you know, the gall of going ahead behind closed doors and approving these payouts for yourself. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. And so today, you know, when Premier Hogan said he couldn't comment on the travel nurses scandal recently because no one asked him about it. Well, I'm asking him today, will you immediately reverse this decision? And to each of those retiring ministers, I ask them, will you refuse to accept these secret payments?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a good thing to do. It's a smart thing to do. It's a tone-deaf issue to give yourself that sort of severance increase anyway. So I guess if I'm reading between the lines, if you're successful in the election, whenever that may be, and to use the Premier's words, on or before October 12th or 14th, so that means that goes away immediately if you're successful?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will cancel this. This type of increases should not be approved secretly by Cabinet. There has to be an open process. There has to be an open transparency about all of this. And your callers have it right. You know, the Liberal government, they talk about transparent, but they've been anything but transparent. We've seen it in land deals. You know, we've seen it in hotel deals. And now here we go again. They turn around and secretly approve this type of severance payouts. And I can only think of what that money could be used for. And you are so right. Every time you remind us as politicians that it's not our money, it's taxpayers' dollars. And that's a message that apparently has been lost on this Liberal government.
Okay, let's take, path down the road. You heard me also say that I understand the role of the opposition, and it's critically important in our structure of democracy here. But we also need to talk about how things might change, what you might do differently if you were at the helm and had the seat on the 8th floor. So things like the hotel, and I guess that's reference to the Comfort Inn. We know now that that's been sold by the former owners to a company based in Ontario or Quebec, one or the other. What do we do with that?
Totally. That's the whole problem. That deal should never have happened, and the only reason it happened, 2 things happened there. Number one, it was a reaction because they had no housing plan, and secondly, they did not go out and issue RFPs. I had calls from at least 2 other hotel owners in the city of St. John saying, we would have loved to bid on that contract. But of course, we know that didn't happen. So this is the problem. When you are out making deals with your Liberal friends without going out to tender, without doing due diligence, without an RFP process, then I believe we wind up spending perhaps cuts, more money than we ought to be spending. And I have constantly criticized this government for being reactionary. It comes down to planning and making sure that you have those plans in place. I heard you this morning talk about the Rothschild report. I've spoken to you many times about that, of course, and I'm firmly committed. We form government, I will release that report. And as you said, maybe there's things in there that are secretive, that need to be blacked out, but that doesn't exclude us from releasing an entire report. And I am fully committed that if government spends taxpayers' dollars on any report, then it ought to be made public, because it's the taxpayers of the province who are paying for them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who thinks they have the authority to tell me what I can and cannot see if I paid for it. It's just one of those things that bother me. On that front, though, it'd also be nice to have a commitment from whether it be if the Liberals win or if the Tories win next go-around, is that some sort of pledge to reduce the reliance on outside consultants. Look, if we had the Premier's Economic Recovery Team, which were good, accomplished people for the most part, that produced a document that was publicly disclosed, I had Moya Green on the show, to replicate it with another $5 million, to be told probably the very same thing is, from my estimation, a waste of my money. Would you commit to some sort of percentage or some sort of benchmark that we can hold you to reduce the reliance on outside consultants? I know it gives politicians an opportunity to say, well, that was the recommendation from the experts. If we don't have enough experts working in the senior bureaucracy here, we're in bad shape.
100%, because I agree totally with you. I can tell you, Confederation Building is filled with reports on shelves that have been commissioned, paid for by taxpayers, that have never been implemented, never been released, and never been acted upon. How many recommendations that are being made all the time, consistently, that never get acted upon? And I have said publicly, and I'll say it again, if you want to go and fix education or fix healthcare or any other area, go talk to the people that are working in the system right now, because I'm doing just that. I've been across this province of ours, and I've listened to people who are on the ground working, and they have solutions. And these solutions are not always about more money. You know, when an internal medicine specialist talks to me and says, she's not asking, she didn't resign because she wanted more money for herself. She resigned because she wanted help, more help. You know, I've talked to other people in radiology and in lab, and these people are on the ground, and they have solutions to help make our healthcare system better. And we ought to be listening to them, whether it's in healthcare or education or any other field.
Yeah, there's a lot of tough work to be done here. My problem, and this is not about one party, one politician or another, is since we started putting cameras in the House of Commons and cameras in the House of Assembly, we get a lot of sound bites, and I know these are crafted carefully to be delivered, and hopefully the media picks up on it, but let's make politics boring again. I want the grunt work done. I want the quiet committee work to be done. I need for people to actually put forward policy that works, as opposed to, let's see if I can't get what I believe to be the craftiest wisecrack covered by the media in a soundbite fashion. I mean, I'm just so sick of it, I can't even tell you.
I don't disagree with you, and that's why I'm a firm believer in committee structure as well, because I believe committees work, and they ought to work. And when you think about, we'd go through the estimates in budget, and people talk about that. Why aren't we bringing in department heads? When we talk about healthcare and $4 billion, and we're not sitting down in budget estimates talking to the people that actually are responsible for delivering those programs, or education or anywhere else. I think there's a whole new realm that we ought to make sure that we're actually doing this transparency and accountability, and I'm committed to doing it.
Talk about committee work. We talk about democratic reform, which is a pretty big catch-all. If the Tories are successful, one place I think we need in democratic reform is campaign finance reform. Would you commit to it, especially closing the loophole where out of province individuals, entities, organised labour and otherwise can contribute to provincial politics? Would you close that?
Patty, I think there absolutely needs to be reform done in democratic reform, including how people are elected. And I think that involves not only finding ways that would, first of all, let's talk about a fixed election date, is a true fixed election date. Because part of the challenge when you're a party or running as a candidate, when you're trying to make a decision based on a 28-day notice, here we are today. We know the election has to be held by October 14th, but we still don't know when the election date is. If you're somebody who wants to make a decision about running for a political party, then maybe if you know that it's on this date and it's 4 years from now, then you can start to decide whether or not you put the name forward or whether you want to contribute or want to actually go for it, because that's part of the challenge for us, I believe. I think there are a lot more people that would look to get involved in politics if there was some certainty that they could plan for. But right now it doesn't exist. And it's very hard for someone to make a decision that could, to give up your job or give up your career to say, I want to throw my name in the hat to run for a position. In some cases, they have to resign their jobs. And so that's a big commitment.
Yeah, and something that the Tories have done in the past, too, is just called elections when they saw it was politically convenient.
Totally.
What's the future of the MOU if and when you are successful in the next go-around?
I mean, that MOU, you've heard from lots of people about the challenges with that and the fact that this, while it's a great deal for Quebec, it's not a great deal for Newfoundland and Labrador. We've heard that loud and clear. This Liberal government has failed to have an independent analysis done of that MOU. That's something that I've been talking about since I got it, since it was first announced. I asked for that independent review in the House. We still haven't seen it. So we're committed to making sure that we get the best deal for Newfoundland and Labrador. And I think there needs to be a lot of negotiation that needs to happen before anything gets signed.
You also need
that independent analysis done.
You also need a willing partner here, right? So negotiating is not just about the politics of Newfoundland and Labrador and or Quebec. So I guess the question is, for independent analysis, if there's still going to be a timeline of next April with retroactive benefits to January 1 of 2025, how does that work? Like, how do you approach the province of Quebec? What do you do between Hydro and Hydro-Quebec? Because it's easy enough to say independent analysis, but you still need a dance partner.
We cannot allow ourselves to be forced into signing any deal by a date. These dates are arbitrarily set, in my mind, based on elections, not based on the future generations of people. This is too important to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. So after the next election, when we form government, we'll sit down and we'll negotiate. But we'll negotiate. If they want to build Gull Island or help us build Gull Island, more than happy to do that. But let's talk about it, how it benefits all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. That's what I want to talk about. Let's not simply get ourselves caught up. There seems to be a rush to say we must get this MOU and turn it into agreements. That's wrong. This MOU is not strong enough to be turned into collective agreements. And that's where I think you've heard lots of people talk about it. And we need to be able to challenge that. We need to have those conversations. Why are we rushing? That continues to be the reason why it all seems to be based on a certain date. And I think that's a mistake. This is too critical for the future of Newfoundland and Labrador. We're going to get one shot at this. Signing up for 50 years is too long a term. The financial arrangements appear not to be as strong as we ought to have when we look at the numbers. And those are the things that are concerning. Quebec certainly seems to be in control of this entire project.
Yeah, what does that mean, though? The prices and the numbers don't look as strong as they could. I mean, are we talking about the flexibility of the energy market period, or what exactly are you talking about?
Well, I listened to a commentary the other day from a political scientist at MUN that talked about the electricity will become the new oil and the demand for electricity in the future. So we're prepared to sign ourselves up for a 50-year commitment plus with very little increases outlined in this MOU. I think from there's lots more room for that to be increased. Certainly when we look at the numbers, when Quebec says they're going to be talking about 12 cents a kilowatt hour as a cost for them to replace the Upper Churchill, and we're selling our power for 5 cents, I think there's a big gap there. And so I think there's lots of room here for negotiations. I don't think we've gotten the best deal we could get. And I think that at the end of the day, that's why we cannot simply rush into signing any deal. Gull Island has been described as the best non-developed hydroelectricity project in North America. So if we're going to develop Gull Island, let's make sure that we develop it not only for current. Let's make sure that the advantages we get from Gull Island are there to create industry. We will create jobs during construction period, but we've got to make sure that we have the electric capacity to create industry in Labrador. We also need to make sure that at the end of the day, we have the right to transmit across the country or down through, because currently we don't. This MOU says that we cannot compete with Quebec in selling electricity electricity. So I want an energy policy. I want a project that at the end of the day simply doesn't stop at the border.
Yeah, and anything about the flow of electricity under our authority is more a federal thing than it is a provincial thing, because the province of Quebec is pretty well understood and documented their position on the free flow of electricity. So that would change the conversation if there's ever such a thing as a east-west energy corridor, which is as old as Diefenbaker, and it's never happened. So if you do not get any sort of satisfaction with renegotiating terms with Hydro-Quebec in the province of Quebec, does that mean you would walk away from the MOU in full?
That's a discussion that will happen and a decision that will be made when we make those things. But clearly, we're looking at this MOU. Several people have looked at this MOU from the point of view is it the best deal for Newfoundland and Labrador? And when I go back to Judge LeBlanc inquiry, let's go back to the Judge LeBlanc inquiry. When we went through and spent $40 million, what's one of the key recommendations coming out of that inquiry? One of the key recommendations coming out of that inquiry is that any time we're prepared to go into any kind of discussions like this, we need an independent assessment of it. Has that happened? No, it has not. It has not. Here we are. This is brought before the House. We still are here full speed ahead with no independent assessment ever been done on this MOU.
I appreciate the time, Tony. Off I go.
Thank you, Paddy.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Bye. Tony Wakeham, Leader of the Opposition, member for Stephenville Port au Port. Final break of the day and the week. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 1. Mike, you're on the air. Hi, Mike. Mike, are you there on line number 1? Dave, I'll put him on hold. Do you want to reconnect there? I've been told that there's a couple of articles that I should read and a couple of videos I should view this weekend or immediately, whatever people want to say, regarding the Upper Churchill. It's one of those interesting things where when it was first announced, it got a lot of attention, a lot of focus. Then it went pretty dormant for quite a long time, and now it seems to be getting back into the news where it belongs. I mean, it is still absolutely one of the most serious pieces of business on the table at this moment in time that deals with the future, economically speaking, here in this province. So, yeah, I'll try to do a bit more work on it this weekend, and we can talk about it on Monday. Let's go to line 2. Mike, you're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Paddy.
Morning.
You got me now?
Got you now.
Yeah, and this Public Accounts Committee on nursing, Gasco and that and whatever, I'm trying to find out what exactly they're going to be trying to do into this inquiry and the questions they're going to ask. To me, the way that I think is going to work is that they're just going to throw some numbers and everything at them and they just support and whatever, if not, and not behind the actual reason of who orchestrated this hiring, the fiasco in the first place in order to require these nurses, and who exactly profited from these expenditures, because the government has got no way of going back to find out of where the money actually went to, and actually who incorporated it or whatever. Because, like right now, over 100 employees in management in HS, and they're running the show. They have a campaign out to hire traveling nurses for long-term care home, hospitals, and whatever. So they're using their own information, the inside information, actually working into the hospitals, into the long-care homes, into everywhere. They're using this information to hire their own traveling nurses and that and whatever, and profiting hugely, besides the money that they're receiving, besides the percentage that they're making from all the expenditures of services. They get a percentage of all of this. So they're capitalizing on all this money, making it easy for the executive to do their jobs. They're coming in, taking it all over. And none of these questions, as far as I'm concerned, are going to be asked in this public hearings thing. And this is where there should be an inquiry of exactly what's going on and who is actually running Eastern Health. The Cummins Group have over 200 companies in Canada. They're buying and selling only from their own companies. And where they've got control of Eastern Health or NHS services, they're dealing basically, they've got no tendering, there's no tendering done, there's no bidding, no nothing. The hiring practices they have written in their contract that any management job becomes available, they're entitled to fill that position without any training, and the government is responsible for any training that they need when we have qualified people there who went through the system are qualified for these jobs. So it's basically a one operation show into our healthcare now and the spending of our dollars. And Tony Wakeham was talking about $300,000 going out to the members. And the members going. Commons Group was taking $300,000 or $400,000 at this province every day. That's what we should be worried about. This thing is going on and on and on. It's been on the go for 20 years. The AG knows about it. The Chief Procurement Officer knows about it. The Comptroller General knows about it. Everybody knows about it. The politicians all know about it. Yeah.
Understood.
All right.
Mike, it's just because it's 12 o'clock, we're going to have to leave it for this week, but you're welcome back next week.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, good show all week. Big thanks to all hands, and we will indeed pick up this conversation again on Monday morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy weekend. Talk Monday. Bye-bye.